Hey, today I'm talking about three 1950s comedies that were all eventually remade in the 90s. And the names of those three films are Father of the Bride, Angels in the Outfield, and Harvey. A first up is Father of the Bride. This is a 1950 film. The basic premise is this loving father one day finds out that his very young daughter, 18-year-old daughter, played by Elizabeth Taylor, is planning on getting married. And then hijinks ensue. And it's pretty dang great. I was very surprised by this movie. I was a bit worried going into it. I kind of thought that it might be kind of very possessive, that he's gonna be like, oh, you're my daughter, and it's gonna be kind of creepy and stuff. And it wasn't. He was a very, very loving father that just wanted to make sure that his daughter wasn't rushing into something, but he fully supports his daughter's choice, and he wants to be able to help her as much as he can because he loves her so much, and he loves his wife so much, and he loves a lot. And yeah, it's just a really fun, cute little movie. I was very surprised too by like how much the humor really connected with me. I didn't think I was gonna laugh as much as I did, but like, no, this movie was hilarious. I enjoyed it a ton. It was very wholesome and cute. And what was so interesting to me, at least, is that it really felt like a Steve Martin movie. Like it was his type of humor, which is so interesting because he's in the remake 40 years later. This movie just felt tailor fit for Steve Martin. It almost makes me wonder if Steve Martin got his influence from this movie at some point. Obviously he's seen it because he's in the remake, so. But yeah, I would recommend this movie. It was a delightful, charming experience. I doubly recommend it if like you're a parent whose child is about to get married, or vice versa, you're a child who's about to get married and you have loving, supportive parents. Like you're definitely gonna see yourself in this. And it's just, yeah, it's a good, fun, ridiculous, silly time. It's great. I loved it. Next up is Angels in the Outfield. This is a 1951 film, and it's decent. Now, I kind of went into this movie with pretty high expectations because the remake from the 90s was definitely one of my favorite movies growing up. I loved it a lot. It's just so silly and charming and delightful. And I would say that my expectations were not met. The movie's still good though. It's fine. It's just not as awesome as I was hoping for. It's the same basic premise still though, where there's a grumpy old coach on a baseball team and the baseball team's doing really bad, and then one day some angels come out to help him turn his team around. But all he has to do is be a good person and then maybe adopt a small child. The biggest difference between this one and the remake is that this one focuses almost entirely on the grumpy old man. And like I definitely get why they did it, but I don't really like it. I feel like the movie kind of lost a bit of its heart by not being from the perspective of the little girl. She was good though. I really enjoyed her performance. And then like my biggest disappointment with the movie were the scenes with the angels helping out, because really we don't see anything. Like it's mostly just baseball players playing normally. But even with me ragging on this movie, I still enjoyed this movie. It was still nice. It was still pleasant. I really wouldn't widely recommend it. I would say if you're like me and you're a big fan of the original, I think it's worth checking out. It's definitely not a bad film by any means. It's just not gonna blow your mind. If you want to watch just a nice pleasant 50s movie, this is a nice pleasant 50s movie. And lastly is Harvey. This is a 1950 movie starring Jimmy Stewart. It's based off a play. The basic premise is this grown adult sees a 6-foot-tall bunny rabbit and talks to him, but no one else can see him. Isn't he just crazy? I did end up liking this movie, but it's in the bottom half of the liked. And I feel like on a different day, I would have put it up higher. I think I kind of went into this mood with kind of a grumpy attitude. Not about the movie, it was just kind of like a grumpy day. But I don't think I would have put this movie a ton higher had I watched it on a better day, but it definitely would be higher than it currently is. I don't regret where I put it though, because I just wasn't connecting to it a ton. I do like the premise a lot. I just didn't find the humor that funny. I did really love Jimmy Stewart in this though. He gave us very solid solid performance. He basically looked like he was stoned the entire time. I think he's technically supposed to be drunk the entire time, but to me he looks more stoned, and I enjoyed that a lot. I also didn't like how every single new person had the exact same reaction to getting introduced to Harvey. They were just like so taken aback and just like, God, get the hell out of here. Get away from this weirdo. I know like I'm biased from a modern perspective, but like if this was me, I honestly feel like my reaction would be like, at first I'd be like, that was kind of weird. But then just after a few seconds, just accept it and roll with it. Because really, he's just acting like a child, basically. And if a child introduces you to their imaginary friend, you just roll with it. It's fine. It's not that crazy of a thing. But I think like my complaining about this is definitely a generational thing because it was the 50s and their understanding of mental health was definitely not as thorough as we know today. So yeah, that's me definitely judging this movie from a modern lens, but it is what it is. I do think though, if I were to watch, because this is a play, if I were to watch a modern production of this, I think I would enjoy it a lot more. I think a lot of the jokes would land better for me because they would be targeted at modern audiences. But yeah, I would say if you're curious about this movie, like if you've heard of it or whatnot, I think it's worth a watch. It's definitely not a bad time by any means. But yeah, good film. I recommend it. Alrighty, now for today's rankings. First up, we got Father of the Bride, student number 37 in the really like section. And then after that is Angels in the Outfield, student number 100 in the like section, right in the middle there. And then bringing up the rear is Harvey, sitting at number 107. Also in the liked section. And this is out of a total of 153 old movies so far this year.